Hello, crew. Welcome back. We're doing a little chat today with some more letters, right? Everything's about those quick letters. Why don't we use words anymore, right? Hey, I'm the same way. My brother's name was 4 letters long, and I called him by the first one. So um, I'm all for shortening things. Today, I want to talk about VRI and VRS and what is the difference? Why is it important? What are some pros and cons? What should we know about it in how we're using it, why you're using it, when to use it, all of those things. So, where do we want to start? VRI or VRS? Let's choose VRI. VRI stands for Video Remote Interpreting. Okay, Video Remote Interpreting. This is used for face to face conversations, i.e., medical situations. Unfortunately, it is the go to these days. It should really be a backup plan. But what we're talking about is when you are in the same room, there's an ASL user and an English speaker in the same room trying to have a conversation, and they need somebody to interpret. If they cannot call in a live interpreter, or if they do not call in a live interpreter, they use VRI, Video Remote Interpreting. What that means is that you will have some sort of technology in front of you, a screen with the interpreter, and they will facilitate the conversation as if they are live in person. Okay. Again, this is used a great deal in medical settings, and a little bit often more now with judicial legal. You have to be very careful. You want a certified interpreter who knows what they're talking about. So you need to be careful about all of this. Hopefully, the interpreters that they have through the system, they're vetted and checked. But in terms of like a police situation, sometimes that is the easiest way to do it or the quickest way. Sometimes for medical, that is the quick and easy way. And some people don't have a problem with VRI, or depending on the situation, it's understandable why we would choose VRI over an in person interpreter, wait time, things like that. However, there are some issues with VRI versus a live in person interpreter, particularly with these high stakes of medical legal, such as that realm, because we're on technology right now. If you have not been on a Zoom call, Google Meets, or Microsoft Teams, like all of these different, right? Then you're not living in the 21st century, right? Since COVID, we have all had some sort of video conversation, whether it's with friends and loved ones or doctors, whatever. What do we know? We know that there's a delay automatically. If I am speaking, sometimes I'll respond to somebody as they start the next. There's a lot of, oh, sorry, what was that? Right? And that's with the same language. Add in when you are, so we have a natural, you got to give a delay in videos, communication. Add in Wi-Fi issues, the Wi-Fi glitches, the Wi-Fi drops, the Wi-Fi in and out. You might have to go back and reinterpret because the screen froze. You might have to say, "Excuse me, doctor, I didn't hear that. The internet dropped. Can you repeat what you said so that I can interpret that for the patient?" We have a lot of internet glitches. It just happens. This is part of life. But now, third option, there's also a delay in interpreting, and we've talked about this, right? It was in my last video. When I was bad at this, I will say this was where I got points knocked down all the time. I am I am an anticipator of conversation, and so if I feel like I know where you're going with something, I'll just jump right in and start interpreting. In simple conversations, that's fine, but typically what you have to do, interpreters are told to take a 2-minute chunk of information. You're supposed to wait about 2 minutes before you start interpreting. We've been going for 5 minutes. How much information was in the first 2 minutes? How much information is a doctor coming in and saying, "Oh, good morning, Mr. Smith. So we have your test results back, and you have da 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 da." If you're waiting 2 minutes, right, to capture the information, to make sure, right? And the reason for that delay is to make sure that we have the information. Excuse me. We know which way the conversation is going. We are providing full and complete concepts and sentences. We're not taking half a sentence and finding out halfway through that, like, oh, we were going a different way. My bad. You have to take in the full concept, the full sentence, the full You've got to get a chunk. All right. And that's literally what it's called, is chunking, that you take chunks of information and interpret these chunks. Well, in a medical situation, a lot of information can come at you. There's a lot to be interpreted, right? So we have that delay in the interpret. Then there has to be a response, right? The patient is going to follow along. Okay. Yep. 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 And then they might sign something back. You, as the interpreter, you don't just start saying the signs that are coming at you. You have to remember it's a different language, different sentence structure. You've got to take things and rearrange it before it comes out of your mouth. That's what interpreting is. There is a delay. So we have the automatic interpreting delay, Wi-Fi glitches, and the fact that it's communication. It's going to be a little bit slower. It makes your doctor's appointments a lot longer, but it is also harder if you have a doctor that's on the move. They could be out the door because they see a patient who's nodding and nodding and nodding, and the person who's interpreting, it's still going, interpreting, and the patient's going, yep, yep, yep. And if the doctor says everything sound okay and the patient's going to the camera, not to the doctor might say, "Oh, okay, yeah, they're good," and walk out. Or as it finishes, the patient might be going, "Oh," and then start to, we don't know, right? We don't know kind of what's going on. Those doctors can leave, the nurses could leave. It's very tricky. It's always better to have somebody who's in person. The other side of it is sometimes we get questions. I mean, I've been to plenty of doctors. Sometimes we get questions like after they leave the room, right? You ever have that where you're sitting there on that paper, very uncomfortable, and then you think, you know what I should have asked about? So what happens, right? When the nurse comes in with your papers to leave or whatever, or the doctor comes back, you go, "Oh, hey, you know what I was thinking?" Right? When you have an in-person interpreter and you have a question, that interpreter steps out into the hallway and says, "Excuse me, can we have you back? The patient has a question." It's an immediate response. If you have a screen, if you have that VRI, that patient might go, "Oh, I have a question. Can you wait? Can you wait? I need them." And it might take a while. And once the nurse or the doctor comes back, the interpreter is then going to have to say, excuse me, can you, and the deaf person can do it too. They have to ask a question. So there are some downfalls to it, but there are some bright sides of that. It's immediate. It's right there. It can help you. My personal opinion is yes, use them to start it out. Say, "Hey, we are calling for an interpreter." Ask the patient, "Would you prefer a live interpreter or would you prefer VRI?" Let them choose. If they say, "I would prefer a live interpreter," say, "Okay, we're going to call one right now. Can we use VRI to start your appointment until the interpreter comes?" If the patient says no, then the patient says no. The other side of that is that for appointments, a lot of times the patient is calling in using a VRS service, calling in, setting up an appointment, and saying, "I need an interpreter." And they are being given VRI. That's not what they asked for. When they're setting up appointments and they're asking for an interpreter, that means an interpreter, not VRI. And you've got to know the difference. And you've got to say, okay, we'll get an interpreter for that appointment. And I've had acquaintances that have said, I'm not doing this appointment. I asked for an interpreter and they've had to reschedule appointments. And you're dealing with somebody's health. So in that emergency, somebody shows up, but I know of a woman who showed up, and this is on our website. It's on this YouTube channel where she showed up to the hospital. It was an emergency, and they did not have the tablet charged. So she was getting treatment, and she has cochlears, and they assume you can hear. And she's like, "No, it's only picking up a portion. It's not 100%. I need an interpreter." So she's missing out on conversations while receiving treatment. I'm not saying she doesn't know what's happening, but can you imagine the fear you'd be in if you were in a foreign country and you went in for, hey, I've got this issue, and instead of bringing in an interpreter, they just kind of let it fly, and you were trying to pick up certain words. Oh, I know that word, or hey, that has the same Latin root. What are you going to be thinking? That's the situation that I think of. If I was in a foreign country and I was getting treatment, I went to the emergency room for whatever, I would want somebody who spoke English to tell me what is happening. So, again, VRI, video remote interpreting. That is for when two people or more are in the same room and you need an interpreter. Okay. So now let's switch over to VRS. VRS stands for Video Relay Services. This is when you are making phone calls. Okay. So, and again, the deaf community is very well versed in this. It's the hearing community that don't understand it. And there was actually a whole, excuse me, I need to look up the actual date of this incident. But VRS and that's the other thing. VRI, there is a charge with it. There is a fee. It is typically paid for by the organization that is, the conversation's happening in. However, sometimes it is the client, the deaf consumer, who is paying that fee. Just saying. There is a fee to it, just like there's a fee for an interpreter. So if you're going to pay, you might as well pay for something you want the highest quality, right? That's what we're going to go with. But Video Relay Services is free. This is through the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title IV Telecommunications, and it is regulated by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. All right, so the FCC is over this, and so it is free. It is a free service, and the deaf person will dial the number. It's a video calling system. Person shows up, says, "Hi, I'm the interpreter, number whatever. Who are we calling? What's the number you want to call?" They'll give the number. They call the number. They tell you it's ringing. Ring one, ring two, hello, and so they will sign what is being spoken, and they'll say, "Hi, my name is so and so. I am the interpreter. I have this person on the line. They need to discuss something with you." Now, some people do not understand how to handle those phone calls. I will never forget my first call from a VRS service, and I was just giddy. I was so excited. I was like, "Ooh, yay. I have a deaf friend calling. Like, this is so much fun." But again, she was well versed in it. It was my first time. And so when it came through, I was making sure to create the delay, or not create the delay, but I was understanding of the delay. I knew it was going to happen, and I was okay. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's good to talk to you. And I knew that there was going to be an added delay because of the interpreting situation and who I am and what I was going through at that time. So it was like, yeah, got it. Not everybody understands that. So if somebody calls and says, "I am ASL interpreter, whoever, and I have so and so on the line," take a breath and be patient. Take a breath. But that also can work vice versa. If you need to call someone, you will have to call a video relay service and get an interpreter on the line and say, I'm trying to reach so and so. Can you call their number and video relay, whatever? And that goes between different people. So, again, video relay service, phone call. So, what I need to look up, there was an incident where because the FCC pays some group of interpreters who work for VRS were doing a little bit of a scam, and they were doing the phone calls with people. I should say just the interpreters because they needed somebody else. I mean, unless it might have been. I really should research this. But somebody was signing. The interpreter was making a phone call, and everybody was in the room, but they were using VRS instead of VRI, and so VRS people are just getting paid. So there was a little bit of a so that's why it's very important to know the difference between a VRI and VRS, because if you are in the same room trying to do this and you use a VRS, it's actually an illegal thing to do because it's government paid for all of this. It is technically not what you do. So know the difference between VRI and VRS, because if you are in the room, you need the VRI. That's the choice. If you would use an in-person interpreter, use VRI. So I will say that in person, that's what we're going to go with. If it is a phone call, if it is telecommunications, it's video relay service, it's VRS. So that is what I've got for you today. A little fun lesson, nice and short and sweet. But yeah, if you have questions, throw it out. Go ahead and do the research on the case that I got in trouble for. That's a lot of fun. And anything else that you're learning more about, that you want to learn more about, hit us up, leave a comment, shoot us an email, eastsouthcarolina@gmail.com, and we'll go from there.